After Witkoff's call with Putin aides leaked over him guiding how to pitch Trump-Ukraine peace deal, Russian President Vladimir Putin said on November 26th that he believes the United States understands the complexity of reaching a peace settlement in Ukraine. He made the remark during an official visit to Kyrgyzstan, where he met his Belarusian counterpart, Alexander Lukashenko. Putin offered no further details on the status of resumed contacts or talks with U.S. officials aimed at a deal to end the war.
I will be happy to inform you about what is happening on our side in terms of achievements, in achieving acceptable and desired results by peaceful means on the Ukrainian front. I know that you are always aware, you are always concerned about this, and you are also one of those people who strive for this conflict to be resolved. We remember your contribution to the settlement of this conflict. Moreover, let me remind you, literally from the very first days, all the efforts that Belarus has made in this direction have yielded good results. And our first contacts on this issue with the Kyiv regime took place precisely on Belarusian soil with your direct involvement and support. Of course, I will be happy to inform you about this as well.
If you ever wish to return to Minsk again, the place will be ready for you. You know, we are always ready. As for Ukraine, we are often reproached, we hold dialogues with Westerners, with the Americans. When they start talking about this, I ask them a question, because they knew that we are not just kindred people, our actions are legally justified. We are allies, after all. So even the Americans, to their credit, they never bring up this issue, never. Once they cut everything off, that's a separate matter, and there should be no discussion about it. Well, I hope that everything will turn out fine, despite recent events. If the Americans, and I'll say this publicly now, what I already told them, if they behave carefully and understand that this is not a simple issue and requires complex solutions, so.
I think there is such an understanding. Let's talk about this now.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin confirmed that U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will travel to Moscow next week to meet Russian officials. U.S. President Donald Trump described the original 28-point proposal, fine-tuned with input from both sides, as having only a few remaining points of disagreement. The comprehensive plan, first presented last week, rattled Ukrainian and European officials for favoring Moscow as it calls for the surrender of Russian-occupied territories, limits on the size of Ukraine's armed forces, and blocks Ukraine's path to NATO. At the same time, Kyiv appears cautiously open. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said Ukraine is now ready to advance a U.S.-backed framework and discuss disputed areas, provided any talks include European allies. However, on November 26th, Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said that Moscow will not make any concessions in resolving the Ukraine conflict. It intends to stand firm on the outcomes agreed at the summit in Anchorage, which it views as the foundation for any settlement.
I can't help but ask about the obvious maneuvers we're seeing in Europe, which have also been confirmed in Moscow regarding the so-called Trump peace plan. As is known, tomorrow is the deadline that he supposedly gave to Zelenskyy. But the day before, Trump stated that this deadline might be postponed. However, it's clear that the Europeans are trying to make their own adjustments and are reducing the number of points in this peace plan. In your opinion, does this kind of tactic bring Russia and Ukraine closer together, or does it actually push them further apart? And of course, I can't help but ask about the leak, the publication of transcripts of negotiations allegedly between presidential aide Yuri Ushakov and his American counterpart. On the eve of this, the Foreign Intelligence Service stated that the United Kingdom might be interested in discrediting the American president, as has happened before, referring to the publication of documents by former employee Steele. But right now it's clear that the main blow has been dealt to Witkoff. In the US, there are already calls for him to resign, with claims that he is allegedly playing into Moscow's hands. In your opinion, at such a dramatic moment in negotiations, who could benefit from the publication of such truly sensitive conversations, and for what purpose? Thank you.
I urge all media outlets to exercise the utmost responsibility. And right now is exactly the period, the moment when we must not give in to provocations. Our opponents are real experts and enthusiasts at this, especially native English speakers in various parts of the world. They have perfected their tactics. They seek to undermine and disrupt constructive processes wherever they may be developing, if for some reason they believe that the development of these processes does not serve their narrow, self-serving and selfish interests. I do not comment on any leaks. To begin with, the President of the Russian Federation has already spoken exhaustively on this topic and in general on the so-called Trump peace plan. This was last week. In the past few days, we have seen numerous information dumps, attacks and assaults through British media and social networks, targeting the very idea of reaching agreements. Moreover, agreements that would mean including an appeal to the root causes of this conflict. We do not know what the position is on this matter, whether it is final, not final, interim or current, of those with whom we are discussing this topic. We are monitoring public signals and statements from officials. We certainly do indeed note such a difficult, the emotional and highly charged atmosphere that is deliberately being created in the West around this process does not help. Any diplomatic efforts require silence. They can be effective and productive when we minimize the risks of external influences. And here we see that a whole range of media outlets is being used, not just as dumping grounds, but as weapons in this information war, which without any doubt I would call an integral and one of the key elements of the total hybrid war that the collective West, led by the European Union, its structures and a number of militant leaders in Western Europe, is waging against the Russian Federation.
Thank you.
That's exactly who I was talking about just now, the Europeans all along.
Colleagues, please do not repeat questions that have already been answered. Let's go to the second row. Hello?
My name is Chao Ji. I represent the newspaper China Youth. I have the following question. We know that Europe and Ukraine are trying to remove from the draft global agreement those points that are extremely important for Russia, and clearly agreements of such a nature are unacceptable to Russia. Is it possible to assume that in this case, Russia is prepared to continue asserting itself in its strategic spheres by military means? And how will your side respond to possible new accusations from the West against Russia regarding the disruption of the peace process? Thank you.
We respond to these accusations, which come in a constant, uninterrupted stream, calmly. We respond to them with our readiness to achieve our stated goals, preferably through diplomatic means. If there are setbacks, then we will continue to act within the framework of the special military operation. We respond by directing our voice to representatives of the global majority who, in the overwhelming majority of cases, demonstrate a sensible, balanced, and rational approach. Naturally, in this area, we have established the closest cooperation and a very intensive dialogue with the Chinese side. We are not ready to discuss certain details of what is happening, including various versions of this peace plan, publicly. After all, time and attention are needed for the dialogue process has continued and we are ready for it. The problem lies in the presence or absence of political will to strictly implement the understandings that were reached by the leaders in Ankara. On the other hand, we are committed to the results of Ankara and will continue to act within that framework, relating what is happening now specifically to those fundamental principles formulated there by the two presidents.
Thank you. To the first row.
Could you please take a moment to introduce yourself to us? We would appreciate it if you could provide a brief introduction, sharing a little bit about who you are, your background, and any relevant information you would like us to know. Please make sure to keep your response concise and to the point, as we are looking for a short introduction. Additionally, we kindly ask that you answer this question in Russian. When you are ready, please go ahead and give your introduction in Russian. Thank you very much for your cooperation.
please, for translation.
Now that Russia has received the updated peace plan, can you tell us what you think about it and whether you are ready to work with it? And a second question, could you elaborate on Donald Trump's statements that Russia has agreed to make concessions? Is that true? If so, what are these concessions and what do they pertain to?
We are ready to work with the material we have at our disposal. Our position has been very consistent from the start. It concerns various aspects of the current situation and to a large extent comes down to the root causes of the crisis that we have been dealing with for a long time. We welcome the Trump administration's efforts to seek reasonable solutions and sensible outcomes. There are different versions of this plan. This is a matter for negotiation. There can be no talk of any concessions or of abandoning our approaches to the key issues we face, including in the context of the special military operation. I want to emphasize that the various elements of Anchorage themselves represent compromise solutions. This was also mentioned by the President of the Russian Federation. This is the basis against which we will be checking when we study and continue discussing the version that is currently on the table or will be on the table. However, this is fundamentally a matter of diplomatic and political procedure, not something that can be appropriately discussed online, especially since issues that are far too serious are currently in the spotlight.
Thank you. Next question, colleagues. Young man, you in the center. In the center, Camila, please.
Good afternoon, Sergei Petrov, News.ru. What specific formats of cooperation in the field of counterterrorism are planned to be discussed at the December BRICS Plus conference? And how do BRICS countries intend to coordinate their efforts given the various regional security threats? Thank you.
I'll start with the second part. The relevance of this topic, of course, needs no further explanation. All BRICS countries recognize this. Many of them face the terrorist threat directly. Many of our BRICS partners and BRICS partner states have extensive and valuable experience working in these areas. First and foremost, I would like to highlight the opportunity to exchange best practices in this field. Figuratively speaking, law enforcement and those agencies responsible for these matters within their respective countries have the opportunity, including through the BRICS format, to engage in dialogue about how to improve their methods and what can be learned from the diverse experiences, which are often, unfortunately, tragic, that are accumulated in different countries. Secondly, of course, is the financing of terrorism, the disruption and cutting off of opportunities for terrorist organizations to receive financial support. This is a key task. It is certainly no coincidence that I drew particular attention to the important fact that this topic is at the very forefront of the upcoming conference agenda, as well as the dedicated session I previously mentioned. The seminar format, which will focus attention on the activities of specialized multilateral international organizations, is also very important. We lack proper synergy. There are specialized units under the umbrella, under the aegis of various international organizations that deal with this. They need to be connected with each other, and the effect of their work needs to be multiplied so that there is less duplication, so that there is the proper focus and use of resources, which are also not unlimited in this field. I think that as a result of this conference, we will be able to present concrete proposals to the Indian presidency in 2026, and India has traditionally paid significant attention to counterterrorism issues on all platforms. This is not just a series of speeches, it is a dialogue and a process of refining practical results that will go into the general fund of our BRICS cooperation.
Thank you. Colleagues, any more questions for the second row, please?
Good afternoon. Arkady Loshakov, Vestnik Kavkaza. Sergei Alexievich, what is the current state of the dialogue between Russia and Turkey, and how do you assess Mr. Erdogan's proposal to resume the grain deal? Thank you.
Relations with Turkey are developing dynamically and positively. There are a number of major projects that lay the foundation for our partnership, including economic cooperation for years and decades to come. There is a productive political dialogue, there are nuances, and of course there are certain discrepancies, including in the perception of serious international issues. This is normal. Mature relations between countries, especially such as Russia and Turkey, and considering that Turkey is a NATO member, imply that things are not always cloudless. And in general, there is reason to continue these discussions. All branches of our state apparatus are in good contact, especially the economic sector, of course. The leaders are in dialogue. I want to say that, by and large, the potential here is not just far from exhausted. We are only just beginning to realize what is possible in our relations with Turkey. And as for the grain deal, its time has apparently, after all, mostly passed. There is, of course, an understanding that effective workable efforts are needed in the area of food security. Effective workable efforts. And I want to emphasize that the same European Union which boasts of its with its so-called humanitarian approach to many international issues, in reality, it simply sabotaged the implementation of a whole series of understandings that would have helped stabilize the situation in food markets and, most importantly, would have given countries and the people living in those countries, especially those in dire need of food, access to it at affordable prices. Getting it from Russia is out of the question. Once again, geopolitics clouds their judgment, and just as with many other issues, the European Union is driven by its own illusions about what the current international agenda is and how it should be addressed. We condemn this destructive course of action, and we see that neither experience teaches these people anything, nor do events that should, it would seem, have made them see reason. But that's all right. We will continue our work with those in the world who demonstrate a sensible, rational, and constructive approach, who strive for normal partnership without geopolitical or other ideological overlays, and Turkey is among such countries. Thank you.